Hi guys, just posting a market update. Thought I'd keep in touch, maybe on I would suggest maybe a monthly basis, just to keep you up to date with what's happening in the market, where we're at in Perth, and just to give you a really brief synopsis of what's going on, just so that I know when you're holding property, sometimes you wonder what the heck's going on. And I found a lot of clients coming back to me, asking me questions, and maybe some of these videos will help you guys out that haven't asked me any questions but want to know some stuff. So most of this is just going to be facts and figures, but I'll be saying them not just for the hell of it. It's because it means something that I think is important, and something that possibly has a bearing on where the market's about to go. So obviously in Perth, we've had a bit of a slump over the last few years, mega hangover from the mining boom between 2001 and 2007. Perth jumped almost 200%, which was obviously very unsustainable. A lot of people came in, prices, a lot of pressure on prices, obviously. The supply and demand equation was working in the favour of homeowners, people with property. And of course, post the mining boom, a lot of people have left the state, and the growth into the state has obviously dropped hugely as well. So that supply and demand equation, which I believe is the actual essence of the growth in the property, is there are other factors as well, obviously interest rates, jobs, etc. But they play a part. And jobs, for example, hand in hand with people coming into the state. For example, more jobs we have here, more people will come in. So all of these things matter. Supply and demand, if you just look at one thing, supply and demand is the absolute critical thing, I believe, that decides whether property price is going to move or not. If we've got too much supply, too much on the market, and not enough people wanting it, then prices are going to struggle. If we've got a small amount of supply on the market and a lot of people wanting to get into it, then that's going to put a lot of pressure on prices. So basic economics, and that's what drives most things. Most things that are rare and precious are, as I just said, rare. There's not a lot of them. If there was a lot of gold everywhere, if we all had gold in our backyard, gold probably wouldn't be the price it is now. So just bearing that in mind, what's happening at the moment is the supply is starting to getting soaked up, and we're starting to see a little bit of some positive news, which I'll just go over here with you. So we're saying at the moment there's 14,398 properties on the market exactly. So just over 14,000 listings. Historically, probably at our worst point in time, we had over 18,000. I don't know that it's been any more than that that I've seen, but it might have been. So that might give you a little indication of where we're at. REWA says around about 12,000 listings on the market is a fair kind of balance between buyers and sellers, okay? So we're just at over 14,000. Now, to compare that to exactly a year ago, REWA said that there were 17,782 properties on the market. So it's reduced by about 20% than it was a year ago. The listings, the amount of listings on the market now is reduced about 20% from a year ago. So why is that a good thing? Well, like I just mentioned before, the supply and demand equation, very important. As we get less listings and less listings, you're likely to see more and more pressure on prices, okay, as there's less stock available to potential property purchasers. So that's one thing. The next thing is that what have we got on my, the vacancy rate here. Vacancy rate has been probably the standout story, I think, in the property market here over the last probably 18 months, 2 years. Now, about 18 months to 2 years ago, the vacancy rate was over 7%. It's now down to 2.5%, according to REWA. And so that's low, that's very low. That means 2.5 properties out of 100 are vacant at any one time, all right? Once you get around about probably 1.5%, something like that, it's just changeover between one tenant coming in and another tenant going out. So very, very important to understand how that works, and it's really good sign for investors, and that's the main reason for that is because it's going to put pressure on the rental rates. So of course, the less rentals that are available, back to that supply and demand equation, it's going to put pressure on rental rates. It'll take a little while to come through as people move out of leases, etc. That doesn't happen straight away. I think I mentioned it in an email a few months ago, but it certainly will put pressure on rental rental rates, and they will go up. So you'll be able to charge more rent most likely over the coming months. It's already moved. According to Domain, rent has grown by 5.7% this year to September. Already moving, and you can expect that to get stronger, particularly if you see that on REWA. If you go on a REWA and look at their stats, if you see it starting to get below 2%, you're really going to start to see some pressure on prices, rental prices there. So what else have I got on here? They're noticing, the other thing around leasing is they're noticing, like in certain pockets of Perth, large numbers of people are going to the home opens for leases. So that's another sign that there's plenty of people out there looking around. So another good indication. Just bear in mind that none of these things stay set for long. It's like I always say, we don't stay in winter. We always have spring, we always have summer. Sometimes winter can seem longer than it was before, or summer can seem longer than before, but they're always going to change. And you should always be looking at the one thing that you know will change. If you understand property cycles and you know that you can change, or that you know that the property market will change and it will change in your favour, what are you going to do to set yourself up to be able to make the most, take the most advantage of that change? So they're probably the main points. I'll just put my glasses on here because I'm struggling to see my sheet. In terms of borrowing, that's better. So in terms of borrowing, most banks, particularly I was just reading an article about Westpac, have really come off the brakes in terms of lending to investors. So that's a big deal. Because it means they have reduced their deposit requirement for an investment down from, it was 20% deposit down to a low of 10% now. So that's a big change. And of course, interest-only lending is starting to come back into fashion a little bit now. Now, these changes that the banks make, or more importantly, that APRA made them make. APRA took the kind of stranglehold off them back in, I think it was April, May sometime, and kind of loosened up the lending ability a little bit for the bigger banks. So that's a good thing as well, because if we don't have the finances or the availability of credit flowing through, that of course affects the market. So they seem to be relaxing those a lot of those kind of pretty harsh conditions they were putting on us before in terms of lending. Although I'd still believe that they're going through people with a fine-tooth comb in terms of what you're spending your money on, etc., etc. So if you're in a principal, if you've had to change over to principal and interest loan, and you want to get back to an interest-only loan, you can message me, and I can probably put you onto someone who can potentially help you out, and get you able to roll over. I believe they are allowing people to roll over. I've heard some rumours, I wasn't doing it myself, but I heard some rumours that banks were at one point not even allowing people to come out and refinance to another interest-only loan. But I think you'll probably have more luck with that now. Of course, they still have to reassess you, but if you can if you want to get back to interest only, you might be happy staying on principal and interest. The interest rate for interest only, I believe, has come down as well. So it might be worth looking at your situation again and assessing where you're at with that. Population, of course, as I mentioned before, that's an important part of the equation, and population growth has actually grown for the first time, I believe, for a long time, 1% to March. Which is actually still well below the trend of 1.7% growth on average in Perth. So we're still below the amount of people that we'd like to be seeing coming in, which would of course help soak up that excess stock, etc. One of those things that will be curtailing that will be jobs, because there's no point opening the doors and letting everybody in if there's no jobs for them to have. It just means that more people are fighting over less jobs. So look, that's a quick synopsis of what's going on. I hope you got something out of that. If you need any help with anything, don't be afraid to message me. Excuse me. Like I said, things will change, and it looks like we're getting to that point where they're starting to change a bit. And it has been, I'll admit, it's been a long winter, and I felt the brunt of that as well. But hang in there. We all know property is a long-term investment. The time that you get the growth and you really benefit will be in a specific period of time in each cycle, not for the main part of the cycle, for a specific period of that cycle, and that's the time that you need to be in the market. Okay, hope that makes sense. Hope you got something out of it, and I'll touch base with you again soon.